Hello, time for another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is Headshot, a novel by Rita Bullwinkel, published in 2024 by Viking. It's 224 pages. Headshot was Rita Bullwinkel's debut novel. It was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize in Fiction in 2025, and it was longlisted for the Booker Prize in 2024. Headshot tells the story of 8 teenage women who participate in a boxing tournament in Reno, Nevada one summer for the national championship. Now, this boxing tournament turns out to be a low rent affair. The gym itself is a dilapidated, run-down, dirty gym in a not very nice part of Reno. There's only one journalist who shows up to cover the tournament. It's a reporter for a local newspaper in Reno. And there's very few people that show up to watch the fight. Fights. It's mostly the family members of the boxers who are not fighting at the time, and their coaches. And the coaches and judges in the tournament are all middle-aged, overweight, balding men whose athletic careers are long behind them. And the only reason they're really participating in this tournament is they want to make a few extra bucks during the summer, and they want to get out of their town and go to Reno and gamble and drink when the fights are not going on. So it's not a major sports event, but it is for these 8 women. These 8 women all are desperate to win this tournament. Now, Headshot reminds me a lot of an earlier novel written a year before called Orbital by Samantha Harvey. That novel was about a group of Russian and American astronauts on board the International Space Station, and it follows them through one day of their time in space. Now, what that has in common with this boxing novel is they're both basically character studies. They are looking at, Orbital looked at why these people became astronauts, what their lives were like back on Earth, and what their plans for the future are after they leave the space station and go home. Well, in the same way here, this novel is really, even though it's a boxing novel, it's really a character study about these 8 women. And we learn as we go through the novel what motivated them to become boxers and why they are so desperate to win the tournament. There are 7 rounds in the tournament, and so each chapter describes one of the fights. And as the fight goes on, we learn about each one of the characters and what motivated them to come to this tournament in Reno. One of the fighters is plagued with tremendous guilt because she was a lifeguard at a swimming pool, and a 3-year-old boy drowned while she was on duty. She wasn't able to get to him in time to save him, and she blames herself for that. She takes the money that she made from lifeguarding and travels to this tournament in hopes that if she can win, it will assuage her guilt. Another one of the fighters is the younger sister of a boxer who won the tournament 2 years before and became national champion, and she desperately wants to win because she wants to prove that she's the equal of her sister. There are 2 cousins who are fighting in the tournament. The youngest fighter in the tournament is a cousin who's only 15, and she hero worships her older cousin. And she wants to win the tournament to win her cousin's approval because her older cousin looks down on her as kind of this dorky younger cousin, and she kind of resents the fact that she's also boxing too. So the younger cousin wants to win the approval. There's another fighter whose father largely ignores her, and she wants to win his approval, and so she's hoping that if she wins the tournament, her father will actually show some respect for her. And then there's one fighter who considers herself a loser. She's not very pretty, she's not very good in school, and she's socially awkward, but everybody's been telling her for a long time that she had the body of a boxer. So she takes up boxing and finds out, to her surprise, that she's actually pretty good at it. So she wants to win the tournament to kind of validate her self-esteem and prove that she's actually good at something. And she's finally found something she's good at, so she wants to do that. Now, as we go through each chapter, we learn also about their different fighting styles and their strategy. There's one of the characters who tries to play head games with the other fighters. She wears weird clothing and says bizarre non sequiturs, shouts them out loud, and she wears a coonskin cap on her head backwards, where the tail is down in her face, and she does all these things to try to mess with people and make the other boxers think that she's crazy and could do anything in the ring. There's another fighter who's much more methodical. She's carefully studies the other boxers when she's not fighting and tries to find weaknesses in their technique so she can exploit them. There's another fighter who's good with math, and she tries to calm herself down and focus by doing math equations or counting numbers while she's fighting. So they all have different strategies involved. Now, to mix sports metaphors, Rita Bullwinkel throws us a curveball in the opening chapter because about halfway through the opening fight, she suddenly skips ahead years into the future when one of the fighters is a middle-aged woman and tells us how her life turned out. And she does this with all the fighters as we go through the chapters. We find out what happens to these women when they become middle-aged or even old. And for some of these women, the tournament was a highlight of their life. It was something that helped determine their future. But for others, it was just a blip. And turned out that it didn't really matter to them. They don't even recall or even remember much about their boxing career. We learned that one of the fighters becomes a pharmacist. Another one deals with paperwork at a law firm. Another one opens a chain of fitness gyms with her husband. Another one becomes a minor actress in California, performing mostly small bit parts until she gets old, and then suddenly she finds herself in demand playing granny characters. One of the fighters discovers she's a lesbian, and another one spends her entire life in her hometown of Dallas. And this trip out to Reno for this boxing tournament was one of the rare times that she ever left her hometown or even her neighborhood. So each one of them turns out to have a different life as we find out after the tournament is over with. This tournament is a single elimination tournament, which means that if you lose, you're out of the tournament. So what's happened, some of the losers immediately go home. They go back to their hometown and pick up their life where they left off before the tournament. But some of the fighters stick around because they want to see who winds up winning the tournament. And if you start reading this novel, you'll probably be like them. You'll want to stick with this and find out who wins. Even if you're not into boxing or sports, I think you'll find this book very intriguing. It's very well written, and it's, again, mainly a character study about these young women. They're all, by the time the book is over, you'll feel like you really know these women, and they'll seem like they're real people and not just fictional characters in a novel. The book is Headshot. The author is Rita Bullwinkel. This has been another Man in Great Book Review. Thanks for watching.